Thank you and welcome. I welcome those present in the gallery joining us and those joining us online as well tonight. Please stand for an expression of faith. We are honoured to have been elected to serve our community. We pray for a community that is smart, culturally rich, prosperous, safe, connected and sustainable. We seek guidance to be an inclusive council, welcoming new ideas, engaging widely and deciding appropriately for our communities both now and for the future. An acknowledgement of land. Mount Barker District Council acknowledges the past and present traditional owners of South Australia, and we pay our respects to those leaders of the traditional custodians that are the traditional custodians of this land. We are honoured to be on the ancestral land of the Paramount and Kaurna people. We acknowledge the First Australians as the traditional custodians of this continent. Those cultures are among the oldest living cultures in human history. We pay respect to the elders of the community and extend our recognition to their descendants who may be present. Thank you. Item 1, apologies and leave of absence. We have none. Item 2. Oh, my apologies. We have one. We have an apology from Councillor Bradley Law. Item 2, questions from the gallery. The next 15 minutes are available for members of the community to ask questions relevant to council. It is not a time to make a deputation, have intense discussion or debate. Council members and staff also appreciate opportunities to respond to questions outside of council meetings. This can allow for a more considered response to questions that require further investigation. Each member of the gallery has been provided with a slide outlining the manner in which these questions may be asked. Members of the gallery, are there any questions? Yeah. Yes, come forward, please. And just state your name and town of residence for the record. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Just move there.
My name is Miranda Wilquist. I live in Cameron Road, Mount Barker, and I have a question about the Dunn precinct, which was attached to the agenda this evening. And it just said, under role and character, quickly read through these documents this evening, and under role and character, it says, situated on the northeastern edge of Mount Barker's Hall, the precinct offers a unique opportunity to provide safe, inclusive and freely accessible spaces for young people to gather, access support and participate in community activities. And that goes on to another thing. And my question is, has this area already been put aside for young people's use, or is it open to the whole of the community to consider for community engagement? Because I just worried when I read that there'd been a decision made that the area was to be put aside for young people and other people wouldn't be considered in the use of it. So that's my question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Riley. I may refer to Alison Hancock, General Manager for Transit.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your question. As you might have seen in the council agenda tonight, the Mount Barker master plan is going up for the council to consider entering into the second stage of consultation. So as that relates to Dunn and Bickle, there's 4 different options that will be the subject of consultation. So it is very much open to the whole of the community to provide feedback on those 4 options or a hybrid of some of those 4 options. And that feedback will all come back to this council before making a final determination of what the format and function of the Dunn Park will be.
Thank you. Members of the gallery, were there any other questions? Then we will complete. Item 3, confirmation of the minutes. Would a member of council wish to move as a recommendation and move that the minutes are an accurate record of the proceedings? Councillor Westwood, seconder. Councillor Selassie. Councillor Westwood. Thank you. Councillor Selassie.
No.
Any other member? No. All those in favour? That's carried. Item 4, conflict of interest declarations. Council members are reminded of the requirement for disclosure by members of material or general conflict of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda. Members, were there any conflicts? Not. Moving on, item 5, deputations. There are no deputations tonight. Item 6, questions with notice. There are 3 questions with notice. Councillor Fordham, questions regarding River Road in Harndall. Councillor Fordham, questions regarding the Meadows skate park. Councillor Kelly's questions regarding Harndall footpath improvement and maintenance. Councillor Kelly, questions regarding Harndall's parking strategy and utilisation of council-owned land. And then my own questions regarding community grants program and a funding review, and also my questions regarding the Magpie Institute renewal project. These questions were answered and are available in the agenda and will be noted in the minutes. Item 7, questions without notice. Members, were there any questions without notice? Councillor Slasey.
Well, thank you, Acting Mayor. I wish to foreshadow that following the question, I'll be asking for a seconder so that the question and the response be recorded in the minutes. These have been submitted to staff. Brian, given ongoing community concerns about fencing around Littlehampton's the Glebe Parkland estate boundary and surrounding Glebe boundaries, I ask, 1, is the Glebe and Parkland estate shared boundary fencing still scheduled to be completed within the 2025-26 financial year? 2, can administration confirm whether a design for the fencing along the shared western boundary of the Glebe and Parkland estate is now available and able to be publicly shared? 3, has the project now been assigned and is there opportunity to engage with relevant stakeholders and the broader community on the proposal, including sharing details and timeframes? 4, can administration please provide further detail on the scope of works, including proposed materials, estimated costs and confirmation of whether these costs will be borne by council or the parkland developer? And 5, is the remaining rural boundary fencing at the Glebe, including along Old Princes Highway and the surrounding boundaries, still on track for replacement in the 2025-26 financial year as previously advised? I move that question without notice and the answer from staff be reported in the minutes.
Thank you. Right, second that. Councillor James. Yes. Yes. Any?
I have nothing further to add.
Councillor James. Any other member? Councillor Slasey.
Nothing further, thank you.
All those in favour? That's carried. Yes, and now I will probably will invite General Manager Phil Burton to provide a response to your questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Jessica, for your questions. I'll take those one at a time. So, in regards to the first question, in regards to the shared boundary fencing, it's still scheduled to be completed in this financial year, but it's subject to the design from the developer, which staff are expecting this week to complete the parkland boundary fencing. In regards to whether the design can be shared with or publicly shared, at this point in time, the design cannot be shared because we haven't received the design from the developer. In regards to whether the project has now been assigned and broader community engagement on the proposal, the boundary fencing renewal project has been assigned to internal staff to deliver. The majority of this will be a like-for-like replacement of rural style fencing. No community engagement is proposed for this element of the project. However, the Parkland estate boundary fencing is not ready to be shared as design is yet to be received. In regards to further detail on the scope of the works, the boundary fencing renewal project will be funded by council, and the estimated cost of these works is $25,000. The Parkland estate boundary fence design is expected to be sympathetic with the adjacent development and landscaping. The materials are yet to be decided, and the cost is not known at this stage. The funding of this element will be negotiated with the developer, noting that there was no obligation under the current development agreement on them to deliver these works. In regards to the remaining boundary fencing, when it will be delivered, it was originally intended to deliver all boundary fencing works under one contract in this financial year. However, due to delays in getting a design and an agreement with the developer on the parkland estate boundary, the remaining boundary fencing renewal will now proceed as its own package of works. And the parkland estate boundary fencing will be delivered as a second package of works subject to the agreement and funding with the developer.
Thank you, Councillor Slappy. Members, were there any other questions about notice? No? Then we shall proceed. Item 8, motion on notice. 8.1, council advocacy and representation framework. Councillor Kelly, would you
I'm going to do deferral.
move the deferral? Thank you. Just a second while I fix the last order. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Grosser. I might seek Sue Miller to provide some advice on the vision.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, councillor Glossop can move the deferral. He just needs to say why and until when, and then it can be seconded and debated as per normal. But if he wants to move a formal motion for adjournment, there will be no debate, and he needs to also accept the reasons for the assumption. So there isn't a slight difference.
Okay, did you hear that?
Not very clearly.
Okay, I'm going to try to repeat this, I suppose. So there's two options. The deferral would require a mover and seconder and an explanation as to why to defer. The second option, and it can be debated in that setting. Yeah. An adjournment is the other option. No debate still requires a mover and seconder. Yeah, but no debate will occur. So,
And, in that case of
motion.
in the case of an adjournment, I get to speak to it. Which I am entitled to, it's a deferral.
Yeah, so yeah.
Through your worship. So you can't move a formal motion until there's something moved and seconded, because there's no question before the council. But what you can do is move a deferral, as you've suggested, and say why, and debate it, like explain the reasons why you're moving it, then seek a seconder, that seconder can speak, and then the rest of the chamber can speak. You can, and that's fine what you're doing right now, but it's just clarifying what your intent is.
And if I move an adjournment, there's no debate, it just gets voted on immediately.
That's right, but it needs to be moved and seconded, something needs to be moved and seconded.
And in the case of an adjournment, do I get to speak to it? Not at all. So later on, do I get to speak to the general motion if the adjournment is not supported?
Through your worship, you can only speak to the reason for resumption, and that's it. You are the only person who can speak to that, but it's not a debate. It's you move it and say,
Right.
there's no debate on a formal motion. It's just the reason for it and when it will resume.
Okay. And in the case of an adjournment, I don't get to speak a second time for the adjournment not be supported. Okay. Look, probably better off with the deferral.
Yeah.
If I may, through you now, I guess because I'm sitting here quite confused, only because I haven't seen this before genuinely with other people's motions. I guess my understanding was that the councillor who moved it would be formalising as they stand up to move it, but they have essentially moved the motion up there. My other question would be, I believe, instead of calling out, would you need to be called upon? So I guess procedurally, how does this work with a deferral? Meaning no disrespect to anyone, I just haven't seen this before, and I would like understanding procedurally how this works, because as a councillor, when I put up any motion to be moved, I haven't seen that someone can sort of jump in and grab something else. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. I will continue to seek your advice. General Manager, Alison Hancock.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Slazzy. As has been explained, this is a motion on notice. It would normally be Councillor Kelly who would move his motion. If there was to be a subsequent formal motion, that would be moved or brought on following a mover and seconder of this particular motion on notice. If a council member wants to move an alternate motion, they can stand up and move, or they can, once acknowledged by the chair, they can move any motion on any item prior to the mover being able to stand up and be able to move that motion. Not something procedural, but normal use, so thank you.
I did that. So on that, I suppose, which point of action
I've moved the deferral.
you move a deferral, yeah, and this requires a so you need to just a reason for the deferral and then we'll seek a seconder.
All right. Now, I just need a couple of minutes to explain this. It's obviously.
Just a second, sorry. There's no background, you need to move essentially what you're intending, the reason for the deferral.
Yeah, well, the reason involves background, surely.
Okay, do you have numbers? Yes, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Grossi, you need to provide the words for your motion in order for the chamber to decide whether there's going to be a seconder to your motion. Once you have a seconder, you can then speak to your motion.
Well, I move the deferral of this motion until the next meeting, the main meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Council members, do we have a seconder? We do not. That motion has lapsed without a seconder.
Well, at least you know what to do in these situations here. The next one.
So we will return to Councillor Kelly. Do you wish to move this motion?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ford? Councillor Kelly? Oh, sorry, before you begin, sorry, continue interrupting procedures here. Just give a moment for the members to read the adjustment to the motion that's present on the screen. 15 seconds and commence, please. Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and present this motion. I'll keep this fairly brief. Firstly, I do want to acknowledge the Mayor's long-standing commitment to advocacy on behalf of this district. That effort is recognised and it has delivered outcomes for our community over time. The intent of this motion isn't to diminish that role in any way. It's about how we ensure council's advocacy remains consistent, coordinated and effective regardless of circumstances. Over recent months, we've had to operate in a slightly different way, with advocacy being shared across multiple members and supported by administration. In my view, that approach has worked well, and it's highlighted the value of a more structured and collaborative model. This motion simply seeks to formalise that, to ensure our advocacy is not reliant on any one individual and that we're in a position to engage directly and consistently with ministers, departments and stakeholders when required. If the Mayor is leading that work, that's excellent. But where needed, Council should also be able to support and reinforce that advocacy in a coordinated way. Ultimately, this is about strengthening Council's collective voice and ensuring we're well positioned to deal with the scale of challenges facing our district. For these reasons, I commend the motion. Can I add just to that? I also want to thank the councillors who have engaged with me in regards to this motion as it has evolved. Your input has been valuable in shaping the version that's been presented here today. I do apologise for the last minute change this afternoon, but hopefully that's a change that everyone has now seen and can feel confident that they understand.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Through you, acting Mayor, I'd like to thank Darren for his advocacy and commitment to this motion and also ability to take feedback. I welcome the debate on advocacy as we're trying to improve the outcomes for the council and the community. There are pros and cons to this issue and we need to respect the functioning of the council and the mayor. I acknowledge that we've had strong advocacy during the election period, which has been really positive for the council, and I believe it has reflected community sentiments and demonstrated that there has been a lack of planning and investment that's for this region. I'm very keen on developing a cooperative approach, and I think the community expects to see progress on issues and traction, which in some ways I believe goes beyond political advocacy. I believe that we need to look at planning investment with the state and also federal governments in a cooperative approach and developing those relationships. So therefore, I think that this motion has some merit, but also I think we need to maintain our cooperative relationship with the council. I guess the other side of the argument is we do have a mayor who's the principal spokesperson of the council, and the position needs to be respected along with the elected members. I've asked some legal questions of staff in relation to this motion. So I think it's important that we follow due process. And I'm interested to hear other councillors and their debate, but I do commend the idea of continuing the facility during the election period.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other members? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do want to start by saying that I support the intent of this motion. Strengthening our advocacy and ensuring it is coordinated and effective is incredibly important, particularly given the work we've been undertaking over the past few months. I also want to acknowledge that those recent efforts, coordinated through the CEO and involving the acting mayor, have been well received and importantly effective. My only concern with the motion, as currently drafted, is around ensuring we remain clear on roles and responsibilities, particularly those set out in legislation. The Mayor is, of course, the principal spokesperson for Council, and the administration plays a key role in coordinating and progressing advocacy in line with Council's adopted positions. I think we need to be mindful of not unintentionally creating a structure that requires multiple elected members to be involved in every instance of advocacy. While the intent is clearly to strengthen representation, in practice, this may create challenges in terms of coordination, timeliness, and determining who is most appropriate to attend, depending on the issue at hand. There will be times where having broader representation is valuable, but there will also be times when a more streamlined approach is necessary to ensure we can respond quickly and effectively. I do agree, however, that there is merit in strengthening how we report activities back to Council so that all members are informed and can see the outcomes of that work. So for me, it's about striking the right balance, maintaining clarity of roles, allowing flexibility in how advocacy is undertaken, and ensuring transparency through appropriate reporting. I'm not sure that this motion in its current form lands that balance as it stands, and I would also be interested to hear the views of my fellow elected members on how best to achieve that. I just don't want to see us move from an approach that has been working well to one that may unintentionally slow us down or limit our ability to respond when opportunities arise. And it would also be my preference if at the time we can take the motion separately, individually, rather than en bloc, preferably.
Yes, unfortunately, Councillor Jones, we have already moved this.
Oh, they're all.
That's together.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members? Councillor Grosser.
Yeah, look, critically important area, obviously, but we're all aware of that. And that's why this needs very careful consideration, I believe. If some parts, as Councillor Jones referenced, the reporting, no problem with. I just have concerns about the chance aspects of this could be counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve. It's abnormal. It's not the way things are normally done. It's not the way that government heads of department and ministers are accustomed to conducting meetings. You don't normally have an additional elected member along to the principal spokesperson, supported by the executive staff, as has been the practice in the past. I can't see what we're really going to gain from it, from that aspect of it, when we have an elected principal spokesperson elected by the community who speaks, argues well, is respected by, I believe, by the government. I think represents council well. I'm not sure that it will be welcome bringing an additional elected member along to meetings. So, given that it's not the way things are normally done, I also have concerns that, like we've been advocating really strongly, great, and I think effectively, but we don't want to overcook something. Like we've got quite a lot out of the current state government compared to governments of the past. We haven't got what we want with the wastewater treatment plant or Heisden Boulevard, but we've got improvements to Adelaide Road with the freeway interchange. Hawthorne Road will get funded, the roundabout at the high school. We've got a vastly improved public transport system to Mount Barker, much more frequent buses. Keogh Ride extension, we're doing reasonably well. I'm just worried that if we go too hard, we could jeopardise it. I just at least stick to what's been working and tried and trusted models. And why I moved the deferral was I thought this is a big thing for the mayor to deal with on First Night Back Council, because it does very strongly impact the mayor, and it's a bit of a reflection of how his performance is seen. So he's now not here, having to leave because of personal circumstances. So can't have any input into it. Now at the last minute, obviously as the meeting started, I realised that there's changes that have just been sent, very last minute, which I haven't had time to consider. So I think, it's a lot to be changing a motion that a lot of us don't see until the meeting's actually started. So I just think that's why I moved the deferral. I'm going to have trouble supporting this because I don't agree with all aspects of it. And what we haven't heard from is staff's opinion on this. I personally would be interested in hearing from the CEO what his thoughts are on this, because he's obviously very experienced at conducting, being involved in these meetings, and whether CEO thinks it's going to be advantageous or slightly risky having additional elected members along to a meeting with state heads of departments and ministers.
Would you like that asked as a question?
I'm asking the question.
Yep.
I'd like to hear from
And I will
executive staff in this.
go to Andrew to provide some commentary on that.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Councillor Ross, for your question. The answer won't be online. It'll be a series of building blocks. Council's credibility in advocating is built from representing its community as fairly and as vigorously as it possibly can. And so the council has entrusted that by its community. The council's building block is to have an advocacy plan, one which is endorsed and adopted by council as a whole, and that the community supports. So that's the most basic foundation stone, and that then serves as a key for the success in council representing to government its aspirations for a community. In theory, it shouldn't really matter who goes to see the government, in a sense, if that script has been developed and endorsed. However, it's convention that the mayor does that, and in collaboration with the CEO. That is the convention. That's the one which, until things change, that politicians recognise. There is no harm necessarily in other members going on a selective basis. There are, in fact, it's very appropriate. But as a default position, to have more than one representative of council representing the council's position is something for which I personally don't support. I prefer the model of a mayor and a CEO supported by staff. Having said that, I also acknowledge and recognise some peculiarities about this community and this council at this particular time, and I can understand what the intent is here, try and underpin council's advocacy. So, given that this council runs until, well, effectively before caretaker, only a few more months really, then as a position, it's not necessarily a permanent position in that sense. So it's limited. In summary, I also note that it says in part 5 that it says determine that where practical delegations or meetings with state, federal, shadow ministers, members of parliament, relevant agencies should include more than one council representative. Should is, if you like, a preferred position, but it doesn't need to be 5. And I would, in that case, if I take that literally, if it's supported by council, I wouldn't be held back in offering an opinion to say, look, on this occasion, you really should only send one person if it warrants. It's a matter of judgment. You know, and in terms of having 2 members of council being there, I could accommodate that, but there might be occasions when you think, no, really, it's a bit of overkill. It's probably not appropriate. It's 2, if you like, elected members that have to capture the attention of the minister. I'd probably say, I'm not sure about that. So I don't really offer any objection to this current motion, save and except in my preferred position that it should be one person. But I can work with this, and that might mean on occasions I say, look, I don't know that it's appropriate that 2 members go on occasions. As I said, the council's confidence in advocacy should be that it has an advocacy plan, and it should have the confidence that that's represented strongly by staff and elected members, and that's the key to success in this matter. I think that's been really the building block that you've all commented on, the effectiveness, at least how well it was received by the community. It was really our advocacy plan. We had a script, council had supported it, and it stuck to that script, and it was represented vigorously by the acting mayor and staff through that campaign. And I think that's the key to success. So I know that sounds a little bit long-winded. I did have to express my personal view. It is tied with form of tradition, but equally I'm also respectful of the council having to perhaps looking at little modifications to try and address some particular circumstances that it found itself in. And so, I do respect that this motion's come forward as a means by which to try and help improve. Everyone's trying and seeking to improve the situation. So it's come of good intent. I think it's a matter for you as a council. Rather self-repeated.
Thank you. Yeah, that was quite insightful. Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, thanks for that very good explanation. Could I just ask the CEO to reflect on, I appreciate the 5th part of the motion, should, but if you read the next one, is to be undertaken, there's no indefinite about that. So I'd just like to point out that the CEO and get him to reflect that some of the motion is very deterministic in that it doesn't leave the option to by my reading.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. I didn't read that into 6 the way I read it, and maybe the author, Councillor Kelly, can clarify. It says determines that for the remainder of the council term, external advocacy and representation on behalf of the council is to be undertaken on a collaborative basis. Well, that's pretty broad. It doesn't necessarily mean that only one person should, or 2 people should go and see a minister. to me, that's a motherhood statement with all due respect that says, and of course it's true, that anything the council does is on a collaborative basis in terms of advocacy. The fact that you might entrust a person to deliver the message doesn't denigrate from acting on that motion. That's how I read it. I wouldn't read into that necessarily. I mean, if I was following that instruction, I wouldn't read into that you can't, that it means that, you've got to send more than one person, one elected member in to meet a minister. What I would do is that I would want to have some assurances that those, whoever it was, whether it was 1, 2, 3, 4 people, elected members, that they would be following an endorsed council position. That's what I would be seeking to have ensured. So one of the safety nets for council and only one elected member representing the views of council is that it should be in the company of a CEO or a member of staff, and the member of staff is there as a check and balance to make sure the council's positions represented. A CEO, in my view, is there to offer frank and fearless advice, and that means, helping the principal member stick to the script, and that is the council's endorsed position. So I didn't read into 6 that would necessarily mean that it has to be more than one member, councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're just going to have a quick handover here.
Good evening, everybody. Apologies for my over an hour absence, I think. Not sure how long it is. I've been absent for a while. We're dealing with this matter, which item is it? 8.1. Any other person who wishes to speak to this? Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move an amendment, please. At point 4, where it says determines that council's advocacy activities are being coordinated, I would like to move an amendment that determines that where practicable, council's advocacy activities. Even continue, further to the amendment, I would like to remove point 7.
Do I have a seconder to that amendment? If it's come up on the screen, does it come up? Right, we'll wait for it to come up on the screen so people can see it. Councillor Slessy. Right, so I've got there on the screen the amendment by councillor Splashy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fordham? You can't do that. You have seconded the original motion. I'm not sure if you've already spoken, have you?
Sorry, seconding.
You're seconding the,
We'll second the amendment.
you haven't spoken before? Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. The amendment now is open to debate. Councillor Selesi.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. The reason I've moved, oh, sorry, Mayor, I apologise. The reason that I have moved the amendment to number 4, where practicable, is simply because it involves the Deputy Mayor in participating in advocacy activities. And I'd like to acknowledge that, unlike the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor is not a full-time remunerated position, and any Deputy Mayor may well have external work commitments. So with that in mind, I just wanted some flexibility in that so that the Deputy Mayor can actually attend or not attend, depending on what they have happening. Gives it a little bit of latitude. With regard to removing point 7, in looking at it, I was more comfortable when it suggested the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to include at least one other elected member. Selecting them, I think, is problematic. Requesting that advocacy correspondence goes through Mayor. Well, I'm looking at that. We actually already have that, councillors. I think we can strike that off because we already have that coming to us. Meeting invitations and engagement, I think, will be covered through the advocacy plan later on. We will be receiving that anyway. And again, with the change to at least one other elected member on a selected basis, I remain uncomfortable with that. So that is the reason for the amendment as proposed. With regard to the rest of the motion, I think it's actually, I do appreciate the intent. I think it's sincere in advocacy efforts. It appears that we're already achieving much of what is outlined. For example, I agree that effective advocacy.
Point of order is,
Sorry, thank you, Mayor. Point of order is that the member should be speaking to the amendment only.
I believe you're correct.
Thank you.
Finished with that?
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Yeah, not too much to add here. I agree with the changes. I probably too was more comfortable with it being a deputy mayor scenario. I think, yeah, the more people involved in this, the more complicated it gets for us. That is no way a reflection of the beautiful people here. It's just a matter of process and procedure. I can see that being a complicated situation. And with the First Amendment, the small one, I'm fully in accordance with that. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Kelly, before you speak, across, he's already spoken, so I believe that you don't have the opportunity. You understand?
I've spoken on the original motion.
Sorry. I said that I don't believe you have the right to speak now.
Can I seek procedural guidance?
I've just sought that. Not an opportunity for you to speak now. With any other member who hasn't spoken before, wish to speak now? Nobody? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. The amendment only. Those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. Right, put it up high, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. And those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment is lost. We now proceed to the original motion. Now go back to the original motion. Is anybody who hasn't spoken before wish to speak now? Councillor Segan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't support this motion. I believe our advocacy policy has demonstrated over the last course of the election campaign that has worked extremely well and been successful, though not in some of the big ticket items we might have liked, nonetheless. I object to the last minute changes were not allowed us due consideration before this meeting. I don't think there is any point in changing a policy we have in place for the remainder of this term, which is effectively up to caretaker only a matter of a few months. And this change should be contemplated by any incoming council, not our current council. It was only brought in this policy fairly recently. I don't think the idea of including more than one council representative has anything. If anything, it makes it more confusing for anyone you're meeting with, or already be staff representatives or the CEO there to reinforce any arguments we're making. And the mayor is quite clearly contemplated and described as the council's representative, bringing forth the will of the council as expressed through resolution to any engagement, and as such, I believe he has done the job well and going to continue to do the job well, and it makes no sense from my perspective, to have an alternative and potentially confusing voice. It remains in his remit to delegate his role to another, generally the deputy mayor if he should see fit, or to another person who he may consider to be appropriate. So on multiple levels, I do not support this. This amendment, I simply think it's too soon after the staffing policy, too soon after having been demonstrated to be effective, too close to the end of our term, and I don't think it adds anything but potentially confusion. So I'm definitely opposed to it. Thank you.
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I commend Councillor Kelly for the reason behind what he wants to achieve. My issues are that we have the advocacy plan, we have a process that works and has worked for some time. The idea of having the mayor as our principal spokesperson is followed up in all sorts of business and other circumstances where there is a single point of contact, because then it's not confused, because multiple points of contact means multiple messages, possibilities and probabilities of missed messages and miscommunications. In business, if you're dealing with a contractor, or an employee or employer, there's a single point of contact to make sure that the message is clear and concise and one message only. So for that reason, I don't support 1, 2, 3, how many people are involved in the chain of messaging, because I don't believe that the message will be the same going through. I think, as I said, I understand where Councillor Kelly comes from, but I think what we're doing here with this motion, which has basically had more moves than a rattlesnake, as far as I can see since it was originally written, it makes it really difficult to actually understand where exactly we want to go with it. And I think that we have enough rigour around our processes and policies with regards to advocacy that this becomes another layer of almost bureaucracy to go with it. And therefore, unfortunately, I can't support it. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Size.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank Councillor Kelly for doing the time we took to do this motion. My sentiments stay with Councillor Seaver and Councillor Westwood. I believe our advocacy plan works well at the moment, with a few more months left to go before we hit caretaker mode. There's no reason to change that. I haven't had time to read through the changes, so for that reason I can't support something I'm not up to date with. But thank you.
Any other member? Have you already spoken? I'm going to have the line staff to advise me.
Yeah, I seconded the amendment.
Looking at the rules. Nope. Any person who hasn't spoken yet wish to speak, or naturally not quite across everybody who has spoken or not. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? They've all spoken? Except for me. Councillor Kelly to close.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I thank you all for the input and feedback provided. Look, it has been a difficult needle to thread to try and find the right language, and I appreciate the input that you've all provided to help me do that. I'm not claiming I've reached it, but I certainly do appreciate the process. In each of the critical points there, I have tried to leave leeway in there. So, for instance, in point 4, sorry, excuse me, point 5, I should say, where it says where practicable, and in point 6, not ordinarily undertaken. So, and point 7, except where protocol or circumstances reasonably require otherwise. So I tried to provide sufficient leeway for discretion to be used, and so I do appreciate the feedback that's been provided by the chamber, but I obviously did try to not box things into a bureaucratic sort of state. So look, I do appreciate your consideration everyone's given tonight. Thank you.
All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. All those against? The motion is lost. Now we move to motions without notice. Members, are there any motions without notice? And I know what's coming, and you're about to gazump me if you give me the privilege.
If you want to go ahead,
I prefer. Thank you. Are there any members that have motions without notice? In that case, I have three. I'll deal with them one at a time. My first motion without notice is for this council to express its gratitude to the Honourable Dan Cregan, former Speaker of the House, former Minister for many portfolios, and that this chamber thank Dan Cregan for his 8 years in Parliament and send him an appropriate communication. Do I have a seconder? That was quick. Councillor Jones. Seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Second motion, that this councillor congratulate the 3 members of Parliament that were elected at the recent state election. I'm not going to name all 3, but I see the second motion. Might have to wait for that. Yeah. The seats of Hammond, Carville, and Tyson. Thank you. Have you got a point of order?
I might have made an amendment there.
No, please be seated. Is there a second though? No, councillor Size. Any discussion? Councillor Seager?
I notice you are moving a motion in relation to the lower house. Is your intention to move a motion to congratulate the election of former councillor Rebecca Hewitt to the upper house?
No, the premise of doing this is that the seats that I'm referring to are lower house seats that directly affect this council area, legislative council as a whole state election. I am not going to congratulate every member of the legislative council or name any other one individually. Is there any other discussion? Would anybody like to say anything to this matter? Councillor Ford, you seem to be attracting my attention.
Am I able to move an amendment to?
If you haven't spoken before, yes, you may move an amendment.
I'd like to move an amendment to recognise Rebecca Hewitt for representing the Legislative Council, given she was a former councillor and is a local North resident.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Jones. Councillor, we'll wait for the typing to catch up. Moment, speak. We have a seconder, that was councillor Jones. Councillor Horton, you can speak to your amendment, please. If you wish.
Very quickly, I just think that given she's a Hills resident, has a lot of understanding of the issues and is now essentially going to be holding part of the balance of power in the Legislative Council. And she's a former councillor, we should recognise her.
Seconder,
Yeah, thank you.
any other member? Right, it's quick, councillor Seeger, due to your fathership of the house, you have the call.
Thank you. Well, I asked the question earlier as to whether Mayor Leach intended to include Councillor Hill. I actually agree with his comment in relation to this, and while personally I can congratulate former Councillor Hewitt on her election, I don't think it's appropriate for this chamber to congratulate her, as she does not specifically represent this state, but her representation extends over the entire state, and therefore it is, as you said, inappropriate. Whereas the members for the motion, the original motion, are members who directly influence this local Mount Barker Council. Thank you.
Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thank you. I'll probably share an alternative view to that. You know, I see her connection here, and don't get me wrong, we do not see, still do not see eye to eye on many things. But her presence here was real and sincere, and I think opportunities that could potentially benefit us. I think you know, I see the idea that we're just thanking the people that we're from here is a bit transactional, perhaps. The sentiment, I think, is to congratulate them on the campaign and on an election cycle success. She's got some affiliation here. I don't see what the harm is letting her know we said good on her. And if it doesn't end up coming back to us with a lot of money, then so what?
Any other member wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Sy.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand where councillor Seeger's coming from. I sentiment stay with councillor Voigt. I think as a previous councillor, I think it would be really lovely for us just to acknowledge and congratulate her on her position in the Legislative Council. Thank you.
Any other member? Does the moving amendment get a right of reply? I didn't think so. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 2. The motion is, the amendment becomes part of the motion. We now revert back to the original motion with the inclusion of that amendment that we now include former councillor Hewitt, who is now the Honourable Member of Legislative Council. Does anybody wish to speak to the original motion still, who hasn't spoken before? Then in that case, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Last motion of the three without notice is directed, I'll wait for the, My third motion without notice, and trust me, this one will be over in seconds. I move that this council express appreciation to Deputy Mayor Councillor Boat for the significant effort he put in the 3 months that I was absent. Do I have a second? Councillor Selassie? No. Seconder, please, who was that? No, Councillor Selassie was the seconder. Back for the motion, just very briefly, thank you, Councillor Boat. In councils, not everybody agrees with everybody 100% of the time. I know that you did this job with, as I said in my email, with gusto, with dedication and your inimitable style. Thank you for doing that. I do appreciate the work that you did do. Thanks. Good on you. Councillor Selassie, seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm delighted to second this motion and I agree with everything the Mayor said. You did a wonderful job, so thank you very much.
Any other members? You're kidding me.
It'll make sense.
You can speak.
Yeah. Look, because there was some discussion about me saying something about this later on, but I don't want to say too much. Really, probably just thank you, everyone here, community as well. Really is my full privilege and true honour. It's a beautiful role, and there's a lot to love about it. There's a lot to love working here and facilitating this place to be the sort of the best version of itself that it can be. It was pretty real on my mind the whole time. It was pretty full on. It was an extraordinary time to step into. I feel like I was in an election cycle, which was bizarre given where I thought I'd be. So, truly remarkable. But I really loved the opportunity, in particular, to probably develop what I think I've got an underdone style of leadership that, I play in a lot of teams. I played sport all my life, and I've been heavily involved in community groups and organisations, groups of people, and I've never really, I'm not one to push myself forward, and I've never seen the opportunity to. But this experience has probably highlighted to me that there is a way for me to develop that style of leadership. This is a good climate for it, and a good place. So it's been a real privilege to have all of you here to do that. And just a personal and a professional thank you very much, and really as well to everyone that voted for me a little while ago, and they're also to blame. So,
Any other member wish to keep this discussion going? I thought it was going to be a quick one. Anybody else?
Yeah, just like through there.
Did you have your hand up? Stand and talk, please.
Just echo the sentiments of Councillor Selassie and the heartfelt sentiments of Councillor Vogt. It was a really enjoyable process, and I think he excelled.
Anybody else? Then, in closing, I guarantee you'll never have to do this again, Councillor Vogt. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? It's carried. Now, we had one that we're bringing forward, we can go for petitions. Okay. Moving forward. Tonight, as this meeting goes on, it is a bit of an unusual meeting. It has been a little bit messy, and I do apologise for being absent earlier on. I have the capacity to bring a motion forward in the agenda, and I'm doing so now. I'm bringing forward item 18.4, which is previously has been put down as a confidential motion. 18.4, it is the motion on notice, the CEO performance review panel composition. I'll just give you people a chance to digest that. Item 18.4. I apologise for not telling you about it earlier, but I have been substantially distracted this evening. Have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. This was initially put down as being a confidential item. I'm just wondering, I don't see any substantial changes to it. I'm just wondering why it's no longer a confidential item. I guess there's not even a motion in there to take it into confidence or not. So I'm just wondering why.
Exactly. I'll bow to the expert governance lady next to me.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Westwood, we received several inquiries from elected members throughout today as to why this matter was being held in confidence or being recommended to be held in confidence. The reason for that is that in your agendas, there is a response to this motion written by Councillor Officer himself, and the contents of that officer comment is personal affairs and should be maintained in confidence. The motion substantively that Councillor Kelly has submitted to the agenda does not contain matters that are confidential. It's just merely the officer comment that is confidential. So as a result of inquiries made to us today, we proposed via email to you this afternoon, and I appreciate that many of you may not have had the opportunity to read that email, that there is a procedural way in which you can deal with this matter without going into confidence. But in doing so, we've proposed a subsequent motion, if you were to entertain this motion on notice, that you move a subsequent motion, which is at the bottom of the screen now, that to move a motion to hold in confidence the officer's report, the officer's comment in the motion on notice. But substantively, the rest of it can be dealt with in the public domain, which is wise.
In the interest of a good chamber, did that satisfy?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, the actual motion itself is there before you, and you can read it there. You have it in your confidential agendas. The public doesn't have it, but before we get too far on any procedural matters, do we need to say goodbye to anybody in this room? Is it on the other side of me? No. Not this one. Excellent. Okay, so there is motion 18.4. Somebody wish to move that motion? Councillor Kelly's motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vogt. Councillor Kelly, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I'll attempt to be brief. This motion is about ensuring continuity and stability in a process that is already underway. The CEO performance review has commenced and a panel has been working through that process in recent months. In my view, there is value in allowing that work to be completed by the current panel rather than introducing change partway through. This is not about excluding anyone, nor is it a reflection on any individual. It is simply about maintaining consistency in what is by its nature a structured and ongoing process. Once this review cycle is complete, there will be an appropriate opportunity to consider future arrangements. For now, this motion seeks to provide clarity and avoid unnecessary disruption to the work that's already in progress. For these reasons, I commend the motion.
Who was the seconder? Seconder, speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I only really wanted to say that I'm quite different to this. I am capable of continuing on in that role, in that capacity. That's no problem to me. I would probably like to pose the question, how you would respond to this. And I might do that after I finish speaking in a second, but simply to say that, look, it doesn't matter to me either way, really. It was a good meeting, productive meeting. No doubt someone else could do that. Thank you.
Did you want to ask that question?
Yes, please. Yeah.
What's the question?
What is your, as the mayor, this relating to you and your capacity in that role? How do you perceive this, and how do you respond to this? If that is a fair question, if you're willing to accept that, that's okay.
Not sure I've had too much councillor vote. My personal view is that it's my understanding there's only been one meeting, and that would be setting procedural methods and arranging what follows. There has been no substantive discussion of the CEO's performance review, is my understanding. The Deputy Mayor stands in for me for many, many items in the 3 months that I was absent. In any of those, all of those other things, Councillor Vogt has had a preliminary handover with me, and we will have a detailed handover with me later this week. I see this as no different to probably the 47 different things that Councillor Vogt has done, where it's normally handed back to the Mayor. It is my role as the Mayor to do this job. I've been the one who's had the delight of working with the CEO for the past year that is in review, and I am absolutely keen to resume my role as a Mayor in all levels, including this. Thank you for the question. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Scalesky.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe it's stipulated somewhere in council documentation that the CEO performance review panel should comprise the Mayor, and I see no issue with the Mayor resuming that role. Importantly, the panel is advisory in nature, with its recommendations ultimately coming to council for deliberation. In relation to continuity, procedural integrity and efficiency in the CEO review process, which has already commenced, I note that the panel was only met once to date. I do not consider that any of these elements would be compromised by the composition reverting from the acting Mayor to the Mayor. It's important to note also that we experienced a change in panel composition well into the process last year, when Councillor Size replaced former Councillor Hardingham with approximately 60% of the way through the process at that time. Despite that late stage change, the process continued with integrity and efficiency, and no issues were raised with or by Council with regard to the composition change and overall outcome. On that basis, I do not support this motion. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Kelly, to close.
Nothing further.
All those in favour? All those against? The motion is lost. Sure. Pursuant to section 91(7), I seek someone to move that, having considered this matter, that I'm reading from the screen, that the council, thank you, Madam Secretary, that having considered the agenda item 18.4, the Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Panel composition in public, that the council, pursuant to section 91(7) of the Local Government Act, orders that the officer's comment in agenda item 18.4, notice of motion review panel, be retained in confidence pursuant to section 93 personal affairs and be reviewed every 12 months. Do I have somebody move that way? Thank you. Councillor Jones. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Westwood. Councillor Jones to speak.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Westwood.
No.
Any other member? Councillor Jones.
No, thank you.
All those in favour? All those against? Carried. We move to item 10, petitions. Report title that we received a petition for the Meadow Skate Park. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that? To move it. Well, somebody like to move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Vogt. Seconder. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Vogt to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, it's lovely to receive petitions of the council. It's a bit of a rarity, but I think I would just like to acknowledge that, you know, I suppose I've been watching this issue brew in Meadows the last couple of years, and it really is a delight to see how effective and capable an organised community can be when especially when they feel like they've got a chance. And I really feel like there is a good chance here for these people to have their requests met and have their advocacy and their effort to push all levels of government in the direction that they want. And I really do hope they're successful in that. And I look forward to council engaging with them down the track to help make ends meet. Thank you.
Seconder. And Gordon, council.
Thank you. Thank you, the community, for pushing for this issue and being successful in getting the state government funding. Vanessa, that we'll be hearing from today, seeks clarity on this project and potential inclusion of the Tundra Master Plan. And the state government funding is, I guess, an opportunity to lock in some early work on this and try and maximise the benefit.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Vogt.
Nothing to add, Ben.
All those in favour? Carried. Go to item 11, recommendations from committees. There are 3 recommendations from the Community Funding Assessment Committee. We'll have to go to item 11 myself. Right. The recommendations from the committee. Bear with me. Right, recommendation 11.1.1. We wish to move that way. That we receive the minutes of the community funding assessment. Councillor Westwood as the mover. Councillor Fordham as the seconder. Councillor Westwood.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Fordham.
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Any other member? Councillor Westwood.
No, thank you, Mayor.
All those in favour? All those against? Carried. 11.1.2, recommendation that the Community Funding Assessment Committee recommends to Council that, and you can read it up there on the screen, there are somebody to move that way. Councillor Jones and Councillor Fordham as seconder. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly speak to this item. I think it's really important to reassure both council and our community that we are absolutely committed to a grants process that is fair, transparent and consistent with the program's criteria, and one that genuinely supports high quality activities that benefit our local community. The role of the committee is to provide clear and considered recommendations to council in line with those guidelines, and it's important that we get that right. It was clear at the recent meeting there are some challenges with the new system that we need to work through. And while that was frustrating, I do believe it was the right decision to pause and take the time to ensure the process is working as intended rather than rushing through assessments. I'm very confident that through the proposed workshop and the agreed course of action, we will resolve these issues and move forward with a process that is both accessible and workable for applicants and consistent for the committee. Ultimately, this is about making sure we are supporting the many valuable community groups and initiatives across our district in the best possible way. And taking a little bit of extra time now will help that we ensure that. Thank you.
Seconder, councillor Fordham.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to propose adding a second component.
You seconded it, you can't.
Okay.
You can speak to the motion.
Okay.
Do
Sorry.
you wish to speak to the motion?
No.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, just to add to what Councillor Jones said, just with reference to the challenges associated, the panel of the sort of committee worked diligently, had all our work in ready to assess, and we were let down by the new Smarty Guides tool. There was a software glitch, so that actually added to the challenges that we had on the evening. We could not proceed. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Bowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I would just like to add as well, it's been, I think I've never doubted, and my confidence in the committee for this panel is sky high. The problems I think, I hope they are worked through. I feel like we should be able to achieve that level of cooperation and collaboration in the council. Yeah, the problems are real, but like I've said, I really do trust the panel members, and I know they have overseen what has been, in my time on council, entirely flawless process from the community perspective. I think internally we need to be looking at how we can make this work a little smoother, because I think those panel members work incredibly hard to deliver what what could be probably a much more streamlined, simple process. And I look forward to assisting that process becoming a little bit easier for them. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Fordham, you had the opportunity to speak before and you didn't take that opportunity. My understanding, and I'll be subject to my governance expert next to me, is that, can she speak? Sorry, Councillor Fordham, you were offered the opportunity to speak a second time. You didn't reserve the right to speak later on. I know you're relatively new councillor. I apologise for the fact that you can't speak now.
So I can't move an amendment because I seconded it? Okay.
Councillor Jones to close.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the comments. And I would, as I had mentioned earlier on in the week, I welcome the opportunity to have a discussion with any elected member that has concerns with the process, as I'm sure that any panel member would welcome the opportunity to work through with them. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. We don't need to deal with 11.1.3, I believe. I now go to item 12, a report by officers. And if I better stop ringing and go back to the instruction manual. 12.1, draft member Barker Centre master plan for community consultation. Would a member like to move the recommendation? Councillor Jones. Seconded. Councillor Bowe. Councillor Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I do support this draft master plan proceeding out to community consultation. It's important that we continue this conversation with our community and provide them with the opportunity to give meaningful input into the future of our town centre. However, I do want to reiterate a concern I raised during stage one, and that is the importance of ensuring that community feedback is accurately reflected in this document. In particular, the distinction between support for relocating civic functions more broadly and the clear feedback we receive regarding the library is an important one. The library is not simply an administrative function. It is a well-used and highly valued community space, and the feedback we received indicated strong support for remaining in its current location. At present, there are elements within the draft that could be interpreted as suggesting that certain outcomes, such as the relocation of the library or the use of other key sites, such as the Dun and Bickle land, are more advanced or settled than they may actually be. I think it is critical as we move into consultation that we are very clear with our community about what this document is and what it is not. This is an aspirational plan. It is not a commitment to specific outcomes, and it should not be perceived as predetermining decisions that have not yet been made. I also want to take a moment to encourage our community to genuinely engage with this process. This is an opportunity not just to critique, but to contribute, to tell us what you value and what you would like to see, and importantly, to offer ideas and solutions where you don't agree with what's proposed. In relation to the library specifically, there are a number of variables that need to be considered, including land ownership, the future of the TAFE site, surrounding developments such as the Wallace development, and broader infrastructure considerations like parking. These are not always straightforward matters, and they may not sit well within council's direct control. However, what is within our control is how we communicate and how we bring our community along with us. If the community has shown a clear preference, such as retaining the library in its current location, then we must be able to demonstrate that we have genuinely explored that option and used our best endeavours to achieve it. And if there are constraints that ultimately prevent that outcome, then we must be open and transparent about that as well. Our community needs to have confidence that their feedback is being heard, considered, and genuinely informing our decisions, even where not every outcome can be achieved. So I would strongly encourage our community to take this opportunity seriously, to engage, to contribute, and to help shape this plan in a constructive way, because this will only be a strong master plan if it's genuinely informed by the people who live, work, and invest in our district. And that requires more than feedback, it requires participation. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm also keenly awaiting kind of a number of elements to this consultation that Councillor Jones has talked about. I suppose in my mind, the regional skate park is probably the key one, and I know here that it says some of the sites being considered, 2 sites now being considered, we're forwarded down to 2, I think now. This seems to be the Flaxby Road Reserve was one of them, and I'm just seeking a little bit of clarity around where precisely that is. And I've got 2 ideas, and I'm hoping it's one, not the other. But the Flaxby Road Reserve, this is the overflow car parking area, where the car park that's not there at the moment, but will be coming back. This is further down from that, not further up towards the current site. Okay. Is there any reason why in that location, why it was considered to go down on that overflow car parking area? And was there any option to move it closer, I suppose, up to the closer to the playground equipment? Because I suppose, knowing users of skate park, you have a lot of overlap between mums, children, and that sort of thing. And I just think that having that in closer vicinity would be maybe a more appealing option, rather than down there. I suppose we're just looking for some insight into that location. Thank you. There's a question in there, yeah.
Is there a question that I should direct to the CEO?
Yeah, look, hopefully.
A question or not?
Yes, there is, yeah.
CEO, could you verbalise the question in about 22 words or less?
Yeah, so the location next to Keith Stevens Park, the Flaxby Road Reserve, was there a consideration to have it instead closest to the current play equipment area?
I not sure I understand your question, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it?
Hang on, it's okay, staff tell me they understand, it doesn't matter.
Do you? Okay, good, thank you.
It's the CEO, you want
General Manager Hancock will respond, but before she does, might be lost upon people. These are just alternatives out of consultation, so it's free flowing. I mean, the community come back with other ideas, and so be it. But you know, because you're asking a question about one location, might be inferred that it's somehow the only thing under consideration. I'm sure General Manager Hancock will clarify that in response.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Vogt. And as you can see on page 49 of the council agenda, paragraph 22, even though we've identified 2 sites, and you're right, the Flaxley Road Reserve is that piece sort of adjacent to where the overflow car park is, sort of in front of Mount High School, the other side of Flaxley Road. Paragraph 22 says the way in which we're going to engage with the community, that if there is feedback from the community that needs to be shifted slightly back into Keith Stevens Park proper or somewhere else, those pieces of feedback will be listened to and responded to. So even though we're sort of setting these 2 sites, the community can bring in a third, or they can slightly amend those 2 sites if it's more amenable to where they think further scaling places.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any other member wish to speak for this matter? Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm conflicted on this item. I'm uncomfortable with elements of this draft master plan. However, I can see value in putting it out for community feedback. I raised questions on this draft with staff on the 17th of March and again last week after receiving the agenda. Unfortunately, it looks like a 26-page memo was only received at 1:30 today, and I've had no time on a workday to assess the contents. One of the first issues I want to raise is with the draft plan's suggestion to relocate the bowls and croquet clubs to the Dun Bickel site to free up land for a larger community centre and library. I'm keen to understand why the Summit Precinct has not been considered. I'd hope this could be explored as an option rather than defaulting to the Dun Bickel site. But my strongest concerns relate to the library, and they do echo Councillor Jones. Throughout this document, there's a clear and repeated theme that the library should move to Man Street. At times, it reads almost as a fait accompli. For example, Action 8.2 refers to initiating a library business case with site options analysis and notes a town centre preference. However, I certainly don't believe it's our community's preference. We have evidence on this with a library options analysis showing that 93% of respondents were satisfied with the library's current location. Yet despite this aspirational document consistently leans towards relocation, shepherding us in a certain direction. I shared my concerns regarding the intentions of the library relocation at the 3rd of November council meeting during consideration of the stage 1 findings, where multiple councillors raised this exact issue. Councillor Jones stressed the need for future documents to genuinely reflect the community's voice. Councillor Seeger questioned the characterisation of support and requested detailed consultation data, and I raised no identical concerns. I'm not seeing that those early stage 1 concerns from this chamber are addressed adequately in this stage 2 draft. And this goes to a broader issue, one of trust and process. Council's own community engagement framework is very clear. It tells us that meaningful engagement strengthens trust, improves decision making, and ensures outcomes reflect community needs and aspirations. It defines engagement as a transparent 2-way process that informs decision making. I wish I could see that reflected here. There is a risk identified even in this agenda report that this document could be perceived as being at odds with community expectations. The community expectation is clear. They expect us to undertake due diligence at the current Dumas Street site first. There is land behind the existing library and Tate and the design for community facilities. That option for expansion should be explored properly and tested. If it doesn't work, then move on. If there are constraints, such as future Tate expansion, then we need to be upfront about that. We need to explain clearly why Dumas Street is not an option and take the community with us on that journey to consider Man Street as a viable and exciting option. If we're going to plan ahead, we need to broadly explain why. What we cannot do is move ahead with what appears to be a preferred outcome without bringing the community along. It's also important to remember where council has already landed on this issue. Following my February motion last year, Council resolved to write to TAFE and state government to explore partnership and development opportunities at Dumas Street site and prioritise investigation of that site as part of a library services action plan. From the correspondence I have seen, TAFE have responded very positively last March with, and I quote, "We are open to renegotiations on the current co-ownership arrangements or the terms and conditions of the agreement, and happy to explore new extensions or building on undeveloped land," end quote. That is the direction this council set. So to now see a draft master plan that appears, to my mind, to corral the council and community in a different aspirational direction, without that work being completed or communicated, is concerning. So I come back to where I started. Yes, I want community feedback on this master plan, but I'm not convinced that this document provides a neutral or balanced foundation for that consultation. Instead, it risks presenting a preferred pathway, particularly in relation to the library, that does not align with formal community feedback received. And that raises a fundamental question for me. When our community has been this clear, I'm left wondering whose aspirations are actually being reflected in this document tonight. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to this matter? Councillor Seeger.
Thank you, Paul. Your Worship, this document proposes a range of options over many sites. The city centre area is divided up into precincts, and each of those precincts has a range of options of how they might be utilised. Whether there are 4 options proposed for Dunbickle, there are a number of different options and combinations for the Man Street precinct, etc., etc. While on one level I agree with the comments in relation to the library, I also note that since the community consultation that's been referred to took place, there have been significant developments in relation to the current library and TAFE site. State government has clearly stated its intention to expand TAFE considerably, which will clearly have an impact on how we relate to what is a shared site with a very unclear ownership document. And in the letter from TAFE, my understanding, I stand to be corrected, was their expansion. They saw that as possibly into the area now occupied by the community centre. So there are problems. Further compounding that is the Wallace Cinema Group, for want of a better name, now have approval to rework some of the cinema complex into an more entertainment area, and 100-room hotel occupying some of that space. Clearly that will add further pressure to the use of that area. Whilst the community has clearly supports the library and favours the current site, that in itself does not exclude the potential to develop a library in another location, potentially shared with the community centre, which is flagged within some of the options within the document that is going out for consultation, that could meet and will exceed the current facilities provided by the library in a new expanded location, allowing considerable expansion of the current library. So while there is a clear love of the current location, that in itself does not preclude the development of an alternative. This document is about the community taking the opportunity to try and understand all the options for the whole of the city centre area, and it is complex. It takes quite a bit of reading, and I would urge the community to take that time to find out, because clearly a lot of concern has been expressed over many years over the use of the Dunbickle land, the desire to have a performing arts centre, where the library might be, the provision of car parking. This document seeks to address all of those matters, and I would urge people not to approach it with a closed mind and a predetermined position, but with an open mind, and read what the document says and what it proposes. It is not proposing any specific thing. It is an aspirational document and is an opportunity for the community to tell us what those options might be, how they see it, and provide us with the feedback we are seeking through public consultation. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Fordham.
Through you, Your Worship. There's so many good planning initiatives in the document. It provides a detailed approach on a lot of important aspects. I have provided some initial feedback to the document, particularly around aspects of transport industry, heritage and community facilities. I'm assured that this feedback will be taken on board, and I would have liked to see a response prior to going out to consultation. In my mind, there's a requirement to take an integrated approach and ensure that supporting infrastructure such as roads and transport are given sufficient consideration in the planning, the overall town planning. For example, developing an industrial precinct at the start of Adelaide Road may be in direct conflict with future road expansions. The council faces some significant challenges in delivering this plan, and it's a good time to get many viewpoints. I'm also concerned that the document lacks at times neutral tone in some key parts. I think there's also needs to be a renewed focus on keeping our open space within these areas and the rural character. But in an overall sense, I do look forward to further future development of these documents and community engagement.
Any other member wish to speak? Then I'll revert back to Councillor Jones to close.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I just strongly encourage the community to engage with us in a positive manner and let us know their thoughts. Councillor Selassie has raised some very good points for consideration, as has Councillor Seeger and Councillor Fordham. I also understand it's a draft and this item can be seen as administrative, yet we want the community to have a level of confidence that we are listening and we will consider their feedback. I'm not averse to being open to the suggestions in this master plan, and I hope the community also share this view. But if we cannot meet the expectations of the community after they've provided us with feedback, we need to be transparent and give an explanation as to why. But I encourage everyone, share it amongst your networks and see if we can get as much feedback and consultation as we can. Thank you.
All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. 12.2, youth feasibility study delivery plan. Do I have a mover to this recommendation?
I'm moving to approve.
I think we first have to deal with getting the item on the table. Before we have the bill, is that correct? Thank you. Thank you. You'll forgive me, Councillor Grosser, I was not aware of previous in the meeting. You wish to move to defer this item? To when? Have you got a date in mind?
Yeah, I moved deferral until the July meeting to enable council to conduct broad community consultation over a 6-week period on the youth feasibility study delivery plan.
Thank you, and I apologise for saying you couldn't do that a few moments ago. I'm a bit rusty on this job this week. So do I have a seconder to the deferral? Councillor Fordham, you may now speak to the deferral, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is a really important document, which the community have not been directly consulted on, not in the specific proposals of this draft plan, including key community groups like the community centre. Although they would like to be consulted and are expected to provide some of the services that this plan envisages. There was initial general consultation, but not on the specific proposals that are now put to us. And it is a major decision to forego having a standalone youth facility in a population that are growing, or an above average and rapidly growing youth demographic. There is future consultation which sounds good, looks good, involving youth envisaged in this plan, but I don't believe that it's to revisit the decision not to have a standalone youth centre. Well, that may be an option in future years. In the past, when we have carried out consultation, what we hear, especially from youth, is that they want a standalone facility, their own space, which they don't have to share with adults or young children, where there are appropriate activities, food because they get hungry after school, somewhere to hang around after school while they wait for their often two both working parents to return home, somewhere safe where they feel wanted. And I think we need to give special consideration to the needs of girls who don't like to be in male-dominated spaces and often need their own nooks and crannies where they can sit, feeling comfortable. So the whole thing needs a lot of thought, and I really believe it needs, well, it could well be that it needs a standalone facility to achieve what we want to provide for our youth. A standalone facility would also provide greater option of winning grants. We could base staff, like a youth development officer there, could still the important outreach programs in other towns that this plan that we're voting on tonight for endorsement envisages. When you look at the proposed facilities that are meant to do the provide space for youth in this report, it includes a civic centre, which is a very high cost facility. I don't know whether we need to spend that much on youth. We're not that they don't deserve it, but they would possibly enjoy something a little bit grungier. And again, a space where they're not amongst the presence of adults, but their own space, created the way that they want it to be. The library is envisaged to host a lot of youth activities, but we hear it's at capacity currently, and that it doesn't have the space and like something like Stirling Library where you can put the youth in a specific area. I don't think it's got that potential. The community centre is expected to have play a role here in accommodating youth activities, but again, there's no space that they could set aside for youth. They might be able to squeeze their fairly at capacity. All the youth spaces are in demand. You might be able to squeeze some activities in, but not purpose-built. I think it's really important that we get this right, because as the report says, there's been a lot of reports and consultation since 2010. We've been consulted a number of times and a lot of attention and reports on this. So we're finally, thankfully, moving the right direction with having a youth development officer again now and looking at accommodating youth with activities, hangout spaces. But it's important that we get it right, because we've waited a long time for this, and the community have got a lot of expectations. I think if we don't go out to them and give them the opportunity to comment on this final important recommendation, there'll be a lot of disappointment. So I move for deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Fordham.
Thank you. I think the overall plan has some excellent initiatives and is well thought out, but we do have a critical need to address youth in the Mount Barker district with such a growing demographic, and need to improve engagement with youth and activities that have meaning to them and help them to have a good path in life. I think where there is some merit in giving the community an opportunity to comment on the strategy at this stage, to strengthen its intent, test its feasibility and encourage engagement and partnership. To me, this will only strengthen the good approach already taken and reinforce it. We have also heard from some community members regarding a need or wish to be able to have some input at this stage, potentially warranting a limited community consultation period. I also think that there might be some opportunities to include some other sport and recreational facilities, as well as skate parks that may appeal to other youth and could integrate with other youth activities, and interact with sporting education and potentially employment.
Councillor Vogt.
Thank you, Matt. I'm comfortable with affording the additional 6 weeks for consultation to go out to this. I was also comfortable probably to see this through tonight because, and this is the credit to the staff and the progress that we've made in this regard. It is a really positive document and it spells out a lot of desperately needed, but just also brilliant things that I'm really enjoying this council turning our focus towards. A little bit in the other master planning for Mount Barker as well. I think we're really starting to pick some of this stuff up. Yeah, so look, I'm very upbeat about this. I'm really looking forward to it. I do take the point though, you know, we've got our role, and I've said this before, you know, like youth advocacy is difficult because people grow up and they move away, and parents, when their kids grow up and move away, they're not really there to do that. So it really is incumbent on people like us in these roles to remain at the coalface of these things. And look, I suppose while I'm looking at this thinking this reads lovely, I think when you've got a long time advocate on this front for a good amount of time whose heart is in the right place for this, if he's saying we can give it 4 to 6 weeks to have a little bit more of a touch point with the community on it, I don't see the harm in that. I hope the staff can, similarly to the tree management policy, wonderfully work with the feedback that that deferral kind of afforded us. So that was a positive process. I hope this sort of replicates that. Yeah, I'm happy with the direction it's going in. I would have supported it anyway. But yeah, I think, like I say, we've got someone serious here for a long time about youth advocacy. Worth a listen. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the deferral? Councillor Gross at the close.
Nothing's better than said that. Thank you, Mayor.
All those in favour of deferral to July? Those against? Carried. With 12.3 proposed heritage agreements for key conservation reserves, do I have a mover to this recommendation? Councillor Seeger. Yep. Second, Councillor. Right. Why whiskey? Good be with me. Councillor Seeger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Commend staff for proposing this. There's a total of around 64 hectares of native vegetation that will be protected in perpetuity. A heritage agreement is an agreement that's written onto the title and protects the land in perpetuity. I would have a small issue with the characterisation on page 64 of the list of activities which are described as are generally avoided. My understanding of a heritage agreement is those activities are not permitted, and with the exception of grazing livestock, which can be a conservation management activity, generally speaking, most of those other things would not be permitted under heritage agreement. And so that aside, putting that agreement, which is written onto the title in perpetuity, can only be removed by the agreement of the minister, and is the highest level of protection you can provide native vegetation in this state. So the application of that listing or that characterisation onto those properties will achieve their protection. It will also allow, as is flagged, an application for funding of around $250,000, about $4,000 a hectare, which sounds a lot, but it isn't when you start doing work on the ground involving invasive species and management activities. So I commend this to all my fellow councillors, and I'm very pleased to see it.
Thank you. For the second, Councillor Vogt.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And yeah, thank you for Councillor Seeger for covering off. Yeah, a lot of my sentiment around this. Really lovely to see it. I suppose, $4,000 a hectare. You know, for where these sites are and the work needed, I would just like to point out that one of the options, well, one of the reasons I'm really looking forward and hoping dearly that we can access this grant money, because the Night Paddock, as you all know, was the subject of a recent bushfire perimeter of Macclesfield, and in some respects, I'm glad it was the night paddock and not the day paddock, because that would be even more terrifying, I think. So yeah, look, these places desperately need it. They are, the ones that I know of at least are run by volunteers. They're managed by volunteers, primarily. And there's been a lot of support coming in from council and other areas as well, which is fantastic. But I know that the underpinnings of it is a volunteer-led initiative, and these people need all the support that they can get, and this environment needs all the support that we can give it. So really, I'm hopeful, really hopeful that we can access this grant money, and kudos to the staff for everything that Councillor Segan pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Ford.
It was really pleasing to have this motion come up, and to see a commitment to preserving biodiversity. Having spoken to a biodiversity expert of the region, there are some other potential sites which I'd just like to mention, without trying to obstruct his current work. The Mount Barker Summit, I don't know whether that has a heritage agreement, Ashunga Cemetery, Macclesfield Cemetery, the Survey Hill at Prospect Hill, and potentially Archer Hill Cemetery. So I think we just need to keep in mind that some of the really important biodiversity is not necessarily in really large tracts of vegetation, and we still need to be able to resource looking after those as well as these three that have been identified. So that's what the comment I had.
Any other member wish to speak? I'll revert to Councillor Segan, close.
Thank you. Only to say that to the best of my knowledge, Mount Barker Summit is already protected, and clearly a significant area of no vegetation and quite well loved. My general understanding is cemeteries, vegetation in cemeteries, while it is important, is not protected at the same level because cemeteries unfortunately have a tendency to expand. So they're put off to one side a bit. Yes, other than that, I'll leave.
All those in favour? All those against? Right, have to do it again. Sorry, all those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. I now propose to have a 9-minute break to this council session, and we, subject to that, it will be a 9-minute break. Do I have a mover? I'm the mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Size. There's no discussion for me, Councillor Size. Anybody else? I say we have a 9-minute break. We'll set the timer on the machine, hopefully, and see you all back here.
Finish talking.
At 13 minutes past. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You could see you.
Yes. Item 12.4, draft tree management policy. Do I have a mover to this recommendation? Councillor Selassie, do I have a seconder? Councillor Grosser, Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to commend the staff for this one. We asked in November that the draft policy be reviewed to include further feedback, and staff have absolutely delivered. I'm particularly impressed with the staff enthusiasm and commitment to get this policy right by all stakeholders for wider community engagement. I'm aware that there are sometimes inquiries requesting that only natives be planted in our district, and I've always considered that a diverse range of plantings is necessary to facilitate a healthy ecosystem. So I want to highlight policy 5.5.1, which states to ensure urban forest resilience to pest, disease and climate changes, council will determine a very wide range of diverse and balanced species for urban open space and urban streetscapes with no limit to the appropriate species options. I was really pleased to see this. I do have a question, please, through you, Mayor, and it's been raised before by both myself and recently by Councillor Grosser. The amenity value of trees and accessibility to this information. With the amenity value defined in this policy as a financial assessment that quantifies a tree's worth based on its physical scale, placement and ecological contributions, council is able to translate nature into a currency to ensure trees are treated as essential public assets rather than disposable obstacles. My understanding from past experience is that a couple of years ago we were using amenity value based on a City of Melbourne method, which is largely recognised within local government areas across Australia. I have the link to the City of Melbourne's tree valuation fact sheet, but that link is no longer current. With residents interested in the value of trees, is it possible to provide amenity value information on council's website? I have looked and I cannot find it on our website on forestry anywhere. Thank you.
So your question is, can we do that?
Yes, is it possible to have that linked publicly?
Mr. CEO.
Well, if it's possible, I don't see any reason why it can't be done. I just don't know technically what the situation is. Anybody want to offer any comment? Yeah, please, fine. Through your question.
So the amenity value is something that, you're right, has been defined in the policy. I think where the policy falls short at the moment is how we're going to use amenity value and for what purpose we will use that for. So as much as we've calculated amenity value using standard formula that's been provided elsewhere, we haven't really determined how amenity value will be applied and under what circumstances the amenity value would be applied. So I think the information could be released at some stage. I think it's really community engagement. There's a strong desire from the community to understand amenity value and how it can be utilised. I think that'd be really good feedback that we can receive and then determine how we build that into the policy for endorsement.
Councillor Grosser.
Look, there's some good minor changes here from staff in response to feedback from elected members in the community. It doesn't go far enough still for some who want a greater emphasis on native plants in our urban areas. I think it says to consider where practicable, whereas under the Township Greening Action Plan, which it sits under, it says that we are to use natives virtually. And again, the tree management plan doesn't reference the biodiversity sensitive urban design that the Township Greening Action Plan does. Their principles of reintroducing native nature into urban areas. However, it does have some good changes, and I endorse it for public consultation. And if it doesn't satisfy some, they get a chance to now have input and. Agree with Councillor Selassie that I appreciate the work of staff in this. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other member? Councillor Bay.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd just like to thank two entities for this. I think Councillor Forden and I believe Councillor Grosser were instigated the deferral of this, and so I appreciate that. I can see the benefit that has provided this council and all of us as well, and as well, really the level of engagement and tolerance almost from the staff to accept that decision and then run with us. It's been it really is a lovely thing, and I know that we make decisions here in good faith, and it is and I know that the council staff only have good faith towards the projects that they're doing. And so I think when we get together and we figure it out the way that we did, it makes the place far more enlightening and a lot more positive. So I'm really commended to the staff and to council members. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Selassie closed. All those in favour? All those against? Carry. 12.5 commercial policy suite, new and updated. Do I have a move for this recommendation? Councillor Fordham?
Yes, for you, your worship.
1 second, you just moved it. Let's see if we get it. Right, seems to be the flavour of the night.
I move a deferral of this item until a workshop can be held, so we could defer it for 2 to 3 months. Would that be?
You know,
Seek the advice of the CEO. What would be an appropriate deferral time for it to hold a workshop or a briefing on this?
July, what are the deadlines and so? It doesn't matter.
July, but we're saying April, May and June. Well, no later than July. How about that?
No later than July?
No later than July.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Chair.
In order to better understand the context in.
Hang on, we have to have a second there.
Sorry, but I don't have to finish the.
No, just call for a seconder first, then you can go. Is there a seconder? Secondly, Councillor Seagate. Councillor Fordham, you have the floor.
So the reason I wanted to defer the motion was to get a better understanding of the context, the intent and the actual practical implications of the policy change. Being a new councillor, I am new to this. My reasons are I'm concerned about combining the strategic and commercial policies, giving major strategic projects a commercial overlay. There is a risk that this could lead to community consideration of a balance of issues being lost in an imperative to generate income. I've had a look at the principles of the Local Government Act, key principles around sustainable development, to facilitate sustainable development and protection of the environment and ensure a proper balance within its community between economic, social, environmental and cultural considerations. I think that needs to be considered. The definitions contained in the policy, in my mind, are somewhat ambiguous, including the definition of commercial and the juxtaposition with appropriate community development. The relationship between the new commercial proposal and unsolicited proposal to me is unclear, or how these processes work together. I also have some concerns about the criteria on unsolicited proposals and how they will be measured in practice. And to me, that seems a bit ambiguous. I'm all supportive of fostering community innovation and entrepreneurship, aligning with community needs. And I'm wondering whether those aspects may have been eroded through this change. And I'd like to see a bit more transparency about commercial arrangements occurring and their level of scrutiny. And I'm not confident this policy allows this. So summing up, like Colonel Schultz, I know nothing about this, and that's why I'm asking for the bill.
Thank you, Councillor Fordham, and his rank is Sergeant. Who was the seconder? Harry, the Councillor,
Thank you, Worship. My concerns are in the definitions, there's a reference to highest and best use in many places through these documents. At no point is that defined in any way, shape or form, and yet it appears in the principle, and the undefined principle, in my mind, is a very dangerous thing, and it needs to be made clear what you're actually talking about. And it seems, while this is a commercial, and this is about commercial and maximising return to council, there's no reference within this, from my reading of it, where social and environmental considerations are taken into place or have reference in any meaningful sense. And I don't think that council is an activity that, as a commercial entity, it should be taking have some reference to that. So I would like to have a workshop on this and work through some of those policies. That's why I'm supporting deferral.
Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Grosser.
Well, when this was first raised many years ago, the commercial policy, I moved to deferral then because, like Councillor Forden, I felt like we needed more information. Almost supported it, but voted against it in the end because I thought it just went a bit far in strengthening the priority of the financial bottom line over social and environmental. I actually think this, or the commercial policy at least, is a better manifestation of it. Just with, I saw somewhere in there that there's a track change. No, I appreciate track changes, always like track changes from staff and reports. There was a change to give social and environmental considerations equal weighting, whereas previously it had been that they were to be considered only equal weighting to financial considerations. So I think there's a few other small improvements in there, but yeah, if there's an elected member who isn't up to speed with the information required to make an informed vote, and I'd share some of the concerns of Councillors Fordham and Seeger. I can't see the harm delaying to have a briefing on it and everybody get up to speed and ask the questions they need to ask. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other member? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I thank Councillor Fordham for raising the idea of a deferral. Whilst I'm relatively supportive of the suite of policies and the continued evolution of Council's commercial approach, it's clear that adopting a more commercial mindset has served this council really well over time, and we've seen some very positive outcomes as a result. I do think, however, that as we continue down this path, it's important we maintain the right balance. While these frameworks provide structure and support for administration to progress opportunities, it remains important that council maintains appropriate oversight and is kept informed as matters progress. In particular, I think we need to be mindful of how and when we apply commercial incompetence provisions. While they are absolutely necessary in certain circumstances, we should be careful not to over-rely on them in a way that could be perceived as limiting transparency or public scrutiny. So for me, it's about ensuring we continue to achieve strong commercial outcomes while maintaining the trust and confidence of our community through openness and accountability. And as Councillor Grosser has said, I welcome the opportunity for any new councillor to receive more information if we don't feel like that we've got enough to make decisions. So I'm happy to support the deferral.
Any other member? Councillor Slattery.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief because there have been concerns raised. One that has not been raised is the unsolicited proposal policy. Whilst I appreciate it has been made more robust, I have voiced concerns with the procedure, and we speak of the procedure with this new policy. However, I'm not actually saying that the unsolicited proposal procedure itself, due for review in 4th of February 2022, has been updated. So I guess when we go to this workshop, I would actually like to see that the procedure itself is also robustly updated to go with the policy.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other member? In that case, I'll revert to Councillor Fordham. Close. Any further comments that arise out of this discussion?
I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak, and I appreciate the sentiments of what's been said. Thank you.
All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Third. 12.6, draft King&B Water Strategic Plans. You'll have a movement to this recommendation. Councillor Seeger, secondly Councillor Selassie. Councillor Seeger.
No, we had a briefing on this earlier today. It is the annual business plan, the long-term financial plan. It is quite a complex document of and we had a good explanation earlier. I am comfortable with this plan and having the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Slassy, any other member? Councillor Seeger?
Nothing.
I will just add, councillor Seeger, that what you said, this is a massive operation, subsidiary of council. There's a tremendous amount of work has gone into it. It is a very important component of this council. There is value in it being a subsidiary, and those strategic plans, from what I saw today, along with everybody else, they've done good. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Funding from M Parker Australia Day event and Christmas pageant. Do I remove it? Mover 12.7. Councillor Slassy, seconded. Councillor Westwood. Councillor Slassy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually don't have much to say on this. I support the recommendations as written. Thank you.
Seconded. Councillor Westwood.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Any other member? Councillor Grosser.
Just reading the report, I don't notice that there's no funding set aside for the annual Survival Day event to be held on January 26th normally. How is that normally funded by council?
I think my memory is that it comes out of the budget, the annual budget we set aside, but for the certainty, Mr. CEO.
Ms. Hancock has got responsibility.
Ms. Hancock, would you get there in a while?
Thank you, Mayor, and through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Grosser. The Survival Day event is not necessarily an annual Survival Day event. It is funded out of the Community Events Grant, and it is funded upon application by the Aboriginal people or Paramount people of this region. So it is continuing on making that application to that community community event funding round. And it's processed through the grant guidelines.
Right, that's the motion wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Councillor Bowe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm supportive of this. I do think this is a good process for us to go by, whereby we kind of remove some of the bureaucratic obstacles. These events are routine, they're business as usual in this part of the world, and it's nice to sort of take some of the burden off. I would hope in years to come that these aren't the only events that we take this burden off. I think in looking forward to our council being more flexible and diligent with small amounts of money, I think this is a good step in that direction. And I know there are many other events out there that would be, in my mind, worthy of considering the same treatment. Thank you.
Anybody else? I revert to Councillor Selesi to close.
Nothing, thank you.
All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. 1A, advocacy monthly update. Do I have a move this recommendation? Councillor Fordham, seconder. Councillor Vogt, Councillor Fordham, you have the floor.
No comment.
Councillor Vogt.
Nothing to add.
Any other member? Councillor Seeger.
Not sure whether I'm adding an amendment, but I believe we've already dealt with part one of this amendment, this motion earlier this evening effectively. Is that not effectively the motion you move without?
Other than bringing to the attention of Council's priority project as detailed. So this is an adjunct to my earlier in item 1.
Are we talking about the same?
Or 12.8, advocacy monthly updates.
It's one, not two.
Yeah, 12.8, part 1, it says, in addition to what I moved earlier, in fact, congratulating these people, that bring to attention the council's priority project.
No, I beg your pardon. I didn't do the second building. Thank you.
Okay, all good. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Fordham,
Thank you.
all those in favour? All those against? Carried. 4.9, corporate strategy framework update. Do I have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Vogt, Councillor Jones.
And thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Vogt,
Nothing to add there.
any other member? Councillor Selassie,
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just trying to find, I do have some questions somewhere. Sorry, somewhere in here, I believe there is so I did have a question earlier today that I submitted and it wasn't answered. It was just regarding the library action plan and if that had been commenced yet, and when it is completed, when we will see it on the corporate strategy, please, through you.
are we here to answer the question, Mr. CEO delegate, or correct yourself? Yeah.
It's just there too, behind.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I am just going to defer to Ben, just to provide a brief update on where that's at.
I would prefer it if it come to the front of the rostrum.
Yep.
Stand where the camera can see.
Yep, right. We have been working on a library actions, but we are exploring the incorporating in the broader community development lead strategy review that's coming up now, so that the library services projects are best aligned with council's wellbeing and community connection aspirations. So, and we'll engage further with council when that lead strategy review comes to you about that.
Thank you.
If I may have a second question through you, please, Mayor.
You might.
I found what I was after. It mentions in the report on page 169, stormwater management plans for Hardrock, Callington and Kanmantoo are scheduled for preparation in the coming years, with Callington and Kanmantoo identified as the next priorities. I have heard from residents that they are very, very keen for these, and I was just wondering if we could narrow down the timeframe, if they're a priority from the next few years, I guess. When would they be starting?
Is that a question for me?
Well, it was through you, Mayor, thanks.
No, it's a question to me, and I'll delegate to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Burton will respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Burton, for assisting that.
Thank you, through your worship. It's probably a little bit hard to narrow down exactly the timing to those, but we are considering those initiatives as part of the 26-27 draft budget, amongst some other stormwater priorities that we have at the moment. So I think once we go through the draft budget program, I'll have a better idea as to where that's.
Anybody else wish to speak? I'll revert to Councillor Jones. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Dogtown ward donations. There's one ward donation. Are there any others? Right. So we can shrink it a little bit so we can see them all, please. Okay. So 250, 300. 100, 150 for. You have another one, Councillor Grosser?
Yeah, look, apologies, I think I forgot to submit it, but it's simple. It's just ditto what Councillor Size has put over yours and to attend interstate training conferences, and the same amount, $300. Actually made 301 to upstage 300.
Okay, are there any others?
I'll remember that, Ian.
Councillor Fordham.
It's through you, Mayor. I'd like to add $100 to Roland's youth program.
You mean Councillor Vogt or somebody else?
Council vote.
Thank you. Now that these are up before you, does anybody have conflicts of interest with any of these donations? No. Then Do I move it to these? Councillor Vogt, seconder. Councillor Westwood, Councillor Vogt.
Nothing to say there.
Okay. Any other member? Councillor Vogt, all those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried. I won't say anything about getting them in before the meeting. I won't say that. Information reports, these 3 information reports will be moved on block. Do I have a mover to remove this? Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Westwood, Councillor Selassie is seconder. Councillor Westwood.
No,
Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. Only just to speak briefly to item 13.3 and thank staff for the global fuel shortage update because I think it's quite important and the community might find it interesting. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Westwood.
thank you, Mayor. I need to say that diesel's gone up, not down.
Thank you for the update.
10 cents.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. 14, quarter reports nil. 15, mayor's report. People just excuse me for 1 second. Okay. 16 members' reports. There are nil, I believe. Is there one? There is one, sorry. Councillor Selassie, now somebody moved that be accepted to Councillor Vogt. Councillor Boardman is seconder. Councillor Vogt.
Nothing goes there.
Councillor Boardman.
Nothing.
Any member? Councillor Vogt.
No.
All those in favour? All those against? Motion's carried. Item 17, questions arising from the council meeting. There's nobody in the gallery, so we can click past that one. We now go to confidential reports. Item 18.1, confidential item, strategic land purchase delegation. Would a member like to move that the recommendation that this item be considered in confidence? Councillor Seeger, Councillor Westwood as seconder, Councillor. Any other councillor? Councillor Seeger. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. We will be moving into confidence. There's a few administrative matters for a couple of seconds before we continue to the